Hi, I'm Sheriff Jim Cummings. In the glitzy world of CSI, watched weekly by some 74 million viewers, the most heinous crimes are miraculously solved in less than an hour. How do they do that? Good entertainment, for sure, but the real world of crime solving is far less flashy. It's not that I'm devaluing the nature of the work, not one iota. I know because much of my first career was spent with the state police, as a detective assigned to the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office. Our job was to gather the kind of evidence prosecutors need to get major convictions. With murder, rape, serious gun violence, and big drug deals often in the mix, the stakes were high and still are. Those days also gave me an abiding appreciation for how the forensics of crime solving can be crucial to establishing guilt or innocence. That appreciation has grown in my time as Barnstable County Sheriff because part of my job now is running a forensic crime unit. It's called the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. We assist local police departments on Cape, giving them a forensic resource that would have to be replicated 15 times if each department ran one separately. Let's take a look now at what the Bureau is up to. I'll be back to wrap this up.
When you take it out, when you see that there's ridge detail or information that's been on the cup, next step would be to try to enhance it using contrasting fingerprint powder. Just gently apply it to the cup. You see those ridges have now appeared more contrast. Next step in the process is to tape lift the light. It's a cup, so there's a curved surface, so it makes it a little more challenging. Apply the tape lifted latent to a backing, and then the latent print is all set to be placed into APHIS.
Now that we have a tape lift of the latent impression from the cup, we've now brought it into the APHIS room where it will be submitted into APHIS. This is the print right here. It's scaled. What we're going to do now is have APHIS mark all the minutia points. It's then up to us to go ahead and review that, make any changes, edit it as necessary, and then we'll submit it to the state, which there's approximately 4 million fingerprint cards in the system that'll be searched against. After the search, it'll provide a list that we will have to go through one by one and review and determine if there is an ID or not. We got it new from the state a couple of years ago. We've had tremendous success with it. And to search those 4 million records, it'd take probably a couple minutes tops. And it will have searched all those records. If there is no identification made, that latent print is retained in the system for future use. So should the suspect not have any fingerprints on file, if they get arrested for something down the road and get fingerprinted, we'll eventually get notified from the state that it'll be sort of a reverse hit. So even if an ID isn't made right away, that's not to say that the case will go unsolved.
At some scenes there's blood that's left behind or reddish brown substance that's believed to be blood. To test for it and to test DNA, what we do is we do a sample swab of the blood and a control swab of the area just adjacent to the blood. So take these swabs of their sealed containers. This is just a saline solution. Apply it to the applicator. Now this is a sample swab of the substance that's believed to be the blood. And it's sealed up.
So there's a lot of players in the regional group that we have right now. There's the state police, there's members from the Barnstable police, as well as the sheriff's department. My role in this is the computer analysis portion of it. Generally how the situation works is we'll execute a search warrant, and we all have different roles in that situation, and my role is the evidence collection as well as the analysis. We'll collect the evidence from the scene, and generally try and preview it on scene to try and filter out some of the evidence that isn't really related to it. But once we have the evidence that is related to it, we'll bring it back here. We'll take the hard drive out of the computer, and we'll connect it to our FRED device. FRED is Forensic Recovery Evidence Device. We don't want to change any of the evidence, so the rule is that we put it through a write blocker. We then, at that point, will create an image of the hard drive, and we work off of that image. The image is a bit-for-bit copy of the hard drive. Once we have the image, depending on what type of case it is, whether it's a child exploitation or it's a financial crimes case, depends on how the workflow goes. But generally, we'll import the image into our analysis software, and we go through the files and pick the pertinent information that we need for the case.
Forensic is very valuable in the prosecution of criminal cases because it's a piece of tangible evidence that a jury can actually set their eyes on. Something taken from a crime scene that's identified to a suspect goes a long way for the prosecution in getting a guilty verdict in criminal offenses. Our crime scene technicians are very good at knowing where to locate evidence, how to preserve it, and how to get it ready for trial. It's very important to our prosecutors. As an example, say some blood evidence is found at a crime scene. It has to be taken, it has to be photographed, it has to be recovered, and then secured. There has to be a chain of custody to get it to the lab and get it back from the lab. And when those results from the lab tie an individual into a crime scene, it's great evidence for the prosecution. And certainly in this day and age with DNA, it certainly would probably result in a conviction if you have DNA at a crime scene that definitely ties an individual into that crime scene. Another example is if one of our technicians were to find a simple thing as a button at a crime scene. Might be overlooked by the normal eye, but a crime scene technician knows that might be important later. So they gather it, preserve it, mark it, and lo and behold, the detective's doing a search warrant on a suspect's home, and they find the shirt with a button missing. Technician can tie that button into that shirt. In many instances can show it was ripped off of that shirt, and that's all great evidence for prosecution, and again, that would help in putting an individual at the crime scene.